In beginning this particular charcoal drawing, what I wanted to do was I saw this in the spring of the year, these rows of trees and houses, and I thought that would be a good lesson in charcoal drawing and also wet into wet painting and watercolor. So to begin with, I'm going to go ahead and take my charcoal and I'm going to draw a rectangle the size of the painting that will follow this, and then take some charcoal and rub it on the side so that I can put it on the paper more evenly. And so I just use my finger and I sort of draw in the shapes that are evident in the particular photograph. And I would do this if I was in watercolor. This would be the application that the paper would be wet on both sides, front and back, and then I would go ahead and start putting my wet into wet on top of this. This way you can move the color. And so just like we can do with the charcoal, we can remove the pieces of charcoal with the kneaded eraser. So taking my finger, I am just spreading the thing around and hoping that I get the tree not in the middle, but close to the center of interest. And then using a darker charcoal stick, I'm starting to block in this big pine tree that's in the in the picture, and then taking my kneaded eraser. Now, a kneaded eraser is an eraser that you can form in any way you want to. In this particular case, I'm taking out some of the charcoal so I can leave room for a little bit bigger tree. And then taking my finger and kind of smoothing this around, just like in watercolor. You could take a damp brush and move it over the color and move it a little bit and get that sort of movement and also lights, rays of light and that type of thing. So it makes it kind of interesting texture. And then I thought, well, okay, now I'm going to have to put something on the bottom because this is the ground, and I'm not going to do that car that's in the picture. I just want this particular thing, but there has to be grass in between. And so what I'm doing is I just did the same thing. I rubbed it on with my finger, and then I'm taking my kneaded eraser and I'm going to take out some highlights that would be there. Seeing how that looks. Remember now, the thumbnail sketch like this is a place where you can experiment with. And this is exactly what I'm doing. What I'm doing now, let's say that the paper is semi-dry and watercolor. Now I'm going to put this in with just a damp brush, not a real wet brush. And I'm going to do this roof here and this little gable end, and then rub it with my finger so I can kind of smooth it out. And it works really rather nice. And so I'm going to just shade that in very, very lightly. The bottom, I don't care about the bottom. The bottom will just the bottom of the house will just fade in to the bushes that are in front of it. And so it gives an appearance of a wet into wet technique in watercolor painting. And I think this is a good application of material to get the effect that you want, and then you duplicate that effect in watercolor. Okay, now here I want you to just look out using the negative space behind this particular form. It's another extension of, I think it's a building within on the property. And so there's a roof there that I did, and then I'll put the side down like this, and very, very carefully. Now I don't want to define these buildings totally, because there's a lost and found edges in this particular assignment that I rather like. And so there I've got my thing, and I want to blend this out so it's not just an outline around the building, you see. So it becomes the background, not an outline. And now I think I've achieved that. And so now I'm going to put in some calligraphy. This is with a rigger. If we're doing it with a watercolor, we're going to just put in some of these few lines in here that indicate that this is a tree. And then there's some dark branches that go in the front of this particular house. And when you do that, you relate the house to the tree and also push the house in the background. Now there is a fence, this is an ugly fence that goes all the way across. And this is where the artist has to sort of look at this and say, okay, now exactly how do I want to do that so that it's not so ugly and it takes away from the scene above. And so I thought, well, I'll try it. I'll just put it in and we'll see what happens. I think light to dark is a good solution for that. And you see some of the slats that come above that work out very, very nice. Then we've got some other shading to do within the building itself because there's trees in front of this. I just want to show those off a little bit by shading in the negative space, then a few little branches again. Now that fence really picked up the darkness of that tree, which is nice. And then I put a few little dark accents there. And then taking the kneaded eraser and erasing some areas where I want a little bit more light coming through, and then darken some areas where I want it darker. This demo that you're seeing is in real time, so it took about 9 minutes to do, but it felt good, and I think it's coming out pretty good. Okay, a little bit more shading down there so that it's not such a rough contrast. And then I'm taking my kneaded eraser again and I'm erasing out just a little bit, so a little bit more highlight on that gable end. And we're going to take that down just a little bit so it's not as bright as the tree. You've got to ask yourself, what is the subject matter here? And the subject matter is that main yellow-green tree. That's what I really want to show off. And now I'm thinking I've got to continue this across, but I'm going to break it up. So some of the fence is broken. I think that breakup looks really nice. And then so I take some of the light away from the foreground, so we have our subject matter more focused, and the foreground is just there to finish off the painting and rubbing off the highlights. Well, I hope you enjoyed this, and at our next class now I'd like you to have a charcoal sketch done for Thursday.